Well, my name is Chris Holme, and I'm from northeastern U.S., New York City for the last 10 years. I've been interested in Buddhism in sort of a general way. It's kind of been in the background ever since I was probably 16, 17 years old. For a long time, I've been hearing about, somebody goes on a retreat and they learn more, they meditated a lot. But I always, when I had free time, which was usually not very much, I would always choose to travel or do something fun. So this time in my life now, I took a year off from work, so it was easy for me to say now is the time to take a whole week and meditate every day and see what I can learn. Well, I feel like in terms of the mission or what's the purpose of being human, I feel like this approach that we've been taught in this week really resonates with me. The ideal of compassion and the ideal figure of the Bodhisattva, eventually becoming Buddha, and even the Buddha has many of the same characteristics as Bodhisattva, right? He's teaching and helping people on their path. I feel that being interested in other people's happiness is actually the way to be satisfied myself, and I've felt that for a long time also. But in terms of, in terms of some of the things we learned, the Four Noble Truths, it's some concepts that I'm familiar with, it was good to go more deeply into learning about those. I was a little surprised that, at least in this tradition, how deeply philosophically dependent this tradition is on the concept of rebirth, reincarnation, and I certainly heard of karma, but when you add karma to that belief or that understanding, then you really get a very, you can explain so many more things, but being able to explain things doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I'm still saying to myself, it could still be that people suffer, bad things happen to good people, and there might be just no reason, and it's just a tragic thing, and we open our hearts and we feel compassion. So I'm still struggling with that aspect of the teachings, and I'm wondering also what other Buddhist traditions, and interpretations of what the Buddha said and taught are out there. I'd like to learn more. But I'm also aware that I also don't know for a fact that reincarnation isn't a fact. It might actually be true. And I guess I'm just reacting against it because it's being told to me as if it's, we're encouraged to explore and think about it, but it's also given to us as this is what Buddhism believes. Buddhism sees this as true, at least in Tibetan Buddhism. So I found that a little hard to accept. I think for me, meditation is about relaxing, opening the mind, and experiencing a little bit, a sense of that selflessness. You can see yourself, actually that's, when I find my thoughts start, and I start drifting away with my thoughts. And so I don't actually see it happening when it's happening, but I see it happening right after it happened. but seeing that, oh, I was just thinking for a while there, and I was so wrapped up in what really you could sense, in a way, a thought is an illusion, right? Because the fact is, we're sitting here, right here, meditating, and the thought is certainly not tangible, right? So the thought is a distraction. So I see, oh, I was distracted, okay, and then I go back to being centered, and I also see, where did that thought come from? What's going on there? So the thought, I think, does come from an idea we have of who we are, and actually one thing that I did a little experiment with a few friends. I asked them, so when you hear yourself thinking about something, it's in a language, you're thinking in a language, and there's also, for me, there's a voice, a kind of a voice that goes with it. So how old is that voice? I asked my friends, and they all said the same thing, that even though some of them are 60, others are younger, they all said the voice is somewhere between 16 and 25. It's always a young voice inside. So so meditation for me is about opening up, and I found in this course, even though I'm a little skeptical about visualization, I found that the focusing the mind on other things besides the breath, and not just opening up perhaps, but opening up the heart. So you focus the mind on the people close to you in your life, and thinking about them in terms of what we've been taught, and experiencing your own heart-mind, what that feels like when you're focused on someone you love. So that was something I actually really appreciated and learned a lot in this 1 week. I would say it was a wonderful experience to get closer to selflessness, to feel like I'm a human being, I function as a human being, but I don't need to reinforce an identity, a personality by thinking about myself or by engaging in behavior that I think is typical of what I'm supposed to do. So, but that's a very, I can tell, my belief or my opinion about that is that can come and go. I can experience a little bit more sense of selflessness, and then I get busy, and the selflessness will fade a little bit. It'll be obscured by the activity of the world and by maybe patterns of behavior where I reinforce my own sense of self. But I also was aware before the class that I wrote in an email to a friend. I said there's a whole world of loving kindness to explore, and I think here, in various ways, I was really given a powerful glimpse into what that's like. And so I guess I wouldn't say there was any radical transformation, but certainly growth. Well, I was raised Christian, Protestant, Presbyterian, and other Congregationalist. I think but I was a little bit turned off by there's a fair bit of violence, the Old Testament, and a lot of Christians will say, this is the only path, and if you don't go down this path, you're going to go to hell. That wasn't that wasn't generally in my community, but so I kind of moved a little bit away from Christianity, but what I kept from that for a long time was that a sense of a sort of a pantheist view, like a sense that the whole world is a miracle, and there's something divine about like just everything. All of matter is, to me, how do I see it now? I don't know. I'm not sure. But that was. As I began to move further away from Christianity, I was interested in paganism and the idea of like Mother Earth and seeing the Earth as a goddess, and that felt healing to me. Seeing patriarchy around me in so many forms. So now, that's an interesting question. Buddhism is very firm, like we don't need a creator. And there isn't the same special feeling treasuring or honoring the physical world in Buddhism, I don't think, as I had in my own mind and maybe absorbed from many sources. But I do find the idea that it isn't necessary for there to be a creator. Back in my mind, I feel like, I'm going to be punished for saying that, But no, actually, though, I for a long time also I felt like, well, if there's a God, God is going to forgive me because I'm doing the best I can, all the time. I find, the idea that, it doesn't have to be a God. It could just be this amazing, wonderful, strange situation where universes just keep repeating themselves. You have a Big Bang and you have a collapsing universe and then another Big Bang. That's, I don't know, there's so many ways of looking at it. So I guess I'm a little less attached to any one idea at this point. But for many decades, for probably close to 2 decades, I had a feeling of like universal mind, like that I'm just part of the divinity of creation. And that was very reassuring to me. Like, there's nothing special about my body, and I in some ways I saw death as, if you just look at it physically, it's not even that bad. If you're not identifying with your mind, and you just say, all I am is my body, which is what I would have said to you maybe 5-10 years ago. Just the body, the mind is the mind itself is just an illusion. Is what I was sort of thinking. Then, in a sense, there's a continuation of the body because the body eventually decomposes and gets mixed up with the wonderful things going on in the world, the living, especially the living things. The carbon ends up getting used by other plants and animals, and so your body ends up kind of becoming a part of the web of life. I felt like that was reassuring too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.